And good afternoon, everybody. It is now 1 o'clock on Thursday. I'm Ann Vandersteel, and welcome back to Steel News. We had an earlier broadcast this morning. Very interesting story. If you didn't catch it, you might want to watch it because we're still talking about the miscarriage of justice. That story is global. It was out of the UN, but today we're focusing right back here in the good old United States. We're going to be talking about something that really frankly should concern all of you, everybody watching this broadcast, because it's not just about one guy or one family or even one case. This is about the power of the federal government. And I rail on this all the time. It's about what happens when the power collides with you, me, the everyday person out there just trying to survive in these, what I would call totally nutso times. Well, Chris Mazzei, he's a serial entrepreneur. He's a filmmaker, a father of two, and a husband. And like millions of Americans during COVID, he turned to the Paycheck Protection Program. Remember the PPP loans that people were running to get? And some paid him back, some didn't. Whatever the situation was, there was just like a mad rush to get this money. Anyhow, these PPP loans were created by the government itself, basically to keep all these businesses alive. But here's what's going on. Today, his wife is already serving time, and Chris is preparing to follow. Wait, what? Why? Well, because the government says this was fraud. Chris and his supporters say something very different. They say this is lawfare. They say this is selective prosecution, and they say that this misconduct needs to be exposed. And I would have to say, I would 100% agree. Roger wrote an article about that, and we'll get to that in a minute. But let's not rush to judgment here, because we're going to lay out the facts. We're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk about the claims. And we're going to also address these unanswered questions, because we're going to find out if this so-called judicial system is being misused or if the system is abusing you. So let me bring in here our esteemed guest, Chris Mazzei. Chris, it is great to have you here today. Whoops, I didn't bring you in. Sorry about that. You have built a business in hospitality and media, right? You worked in the film production. You built a life centered around your family, your entrepreneurship. But during the COVID shutdowns, just like a lot of small business owners, you guys applied for the PPP loans, which were these federal funds designed to keep payroll alive. So this was not really a recovery for you. It turned into be a federal indictment. Welcome. And, how the heck are you doing? Because this is not what people thought they were going to get when they took these PPP loans out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember I keep telling people, and unfortunately at the time I was listening to the Today Show every day during COVID, and they said, apply, no one's going to throw you in jail. Like, just, they're trying to save your business.
Famous last words.
It's going to run out. I even tried to dig up those old clips, and they've somehow disappeared when we were going through this battle.
Shocking.
With the government. But if you would have told me in 2019 that the government weaponizes people or targets them, I would have told you you're crazy. Everybody that's been indicted had to at least done something wrong. And now my family seeing it firsthand, it's unbelievable.
By the way, Michael Castellero says, God bless you both. You may or may not know him, but he's a fantastic guy. Another buddy who's been, was turned into cannon fodder by the Department of Justice and the SEC. I mean, it's just disgusting. So anyhow, let's get back to you. You built a career doing hospitality, catering, media productions, and you were associated with ventures including food service and entertainment projects. Basically, you're an entrepreneur and a family man. But in 2021, the COVID and PPP loans were made available during this terrible economic shutdown, right? These loans were approved through financial institutions. But yet in May of 21, a federal indictment was leveled where you were charged with wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and allegations that there was false documentation used in the PPP application. When you read this and it said United States versus Mazzei, how did that strike you?
It was odd. And actually, in 2021, we just got the target letter. They waited a whole year to indict us. They just wanted to make sure they took all our money and our equity in our home prior to that to make sure we didn't have any money to defend ourselves. But they broke their own rules, and their rule book said they needed to charge us or return the seized funds within 90 days. It's in DOJ handbook. They didn't from day one, they didn't follow their own rules.
So rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to see that, obviously in every attorney we saw that, they're like, that's what They do. It's basically the whole entire United States against you. Like they're it from the get-go, it's their intimidation tactic.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
the legal, sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
I mean, it's to scare you, it's to bully you, and that's why if anybody that's not gone through this, if you just do a simple Google search, you'll see that's why they have, what is it, like a 98% conviction rate, and I want to say 95 or 96 of that is due to their bullying tactics to get somebody to plea.
Right. Just more
Um,
scalps for the taking, essentially. Your case moved through federal court in Hawaii. There was a lot of legal pressure and costs, and of course, the visibility for you guys has basically remained relatively low. Now, you've been blessed recently. Roger Stone has, given you guys some visibility post this 2024 guilty plea that you and your wife Erin pled guilty to on just select charges. What were the charges that you pled to? And the question around that is, was this a plea under pressure, or was this an admission of wrongdoing in any of the areas that you pled out?
well, yeah, to start backwards, this was a plea under pressure. So we
Mhm.
were charged with 4 counts. It was wire fraud, money laundering, and then the conspiracy of the same two, conspiracy for wire fraud and money laundering. And in the plea, they said plea to the two conspiracy cases are charges. And I've talked to some attorneys after, and they're like, "What? Like our attorneys did no negotiating in that plea. Like they just said you basically went in there to get slaughtered. Like what were your attorneys doing?" And we're like, "Honestly, we don't know." Basically, the AUSA just kept threatening. Like he said,
Mhm.
if you don't agree to this plea, we're going to supersede some more charges, which were all false as well. And then the real ante that he brought to the table was, oh, we're also going to indict my mom, who's now 78, has major health issues. Like my wife and I take care of her and my stepfather, who's got Parkinson's, late stage Parkinson's,
Mhm.
and she's had nothing to do with our business at all. So, Roger, when I was on Roger's been a godsend. I mean, but when I was on his program last year, I mean, he equated what they did with their plea tactics to what they did to General Flynn,
Mhm.
basically threatening his son. Like it's the
Yep.
same playbook, just different venue.
You know, having watched, up close and personal the General Flynn trial with Judge Sullivan and the kangaroo court that ensued around that entire trial, the fact the man is still walking around and trying to save this country today only just goes to show that the merit of the man, how strong he is. I mean, General Flynn is an oak, Roger Stone is an oak. For Roger to step out and step into this case on your behalf and start to give you some visibility is massive because you have been issued, you're looking at 36 months. Your wife received 27, and there's $1.4 million in restitution that has been ordered. So your Erin surrendered January 23rd of 2025. And she, began that serving that sentence and the family separation started. Talk us through a little bit about the personal side of this, because besides money and stress, now you've got family separation.
Well, yeah, and to get back just on the restitution, which is a bunch of BS to begin
Right.
with, because basically the majority of that money was in an account set up for the production of this TV series called Ohana that was about government corruption and organized crime in Hawaii, even though we
Oh,
live in
wait.
California.
Are you saying you were going to exploit government corruption and organized crime in Hawaii, and now you've been sentenced to prison and your wife has served already?
Yeah, so not in the
Hmm.
fashion like Nick Shirley is doing. Like
Right.
this was more an entertainment project, so it was a fictional character, but we based it around factual events that were going on in Hawaii at the time.
Right.
Um, Multiple storylines that were literally what was going on in Hawaii in the 1990s. One storyline, ironically, um, and the only reason why I remember this is my mom's first husband had the same last name, spelled differently, but there was a case about a bribery case in Hawaii in the 90s, political figure, and the AUSA at the time so happened to now be our judge.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um, But to get back to the restitution, I think it was 87% of the loan was either seized or we paid back once we found out we got bad advice from the loan originator that said we could use projections. It was in an email. The AUSA also said if we mentioned anything about that email, he was going to just stack on more charges and pull the plea.
Right.
So, but to get to the family aspect, my wife and I are very strong people. So we went through years of this without our kids really knowing, because they were young. This is the stress they don't need when they're 9, 10, 11. We went to that sentencing hearing, which was, we were the only courthouse and federal building open that day on January 9th because it was Jimmy Carter's funeral. I didn't see anybody else, any other cases going on in that courthouse in Hawaii.
That really does sound like they had an axe to grind with you personally for them to open the courthouse when flags are at half staff and basically government functions are for the most part shut down. Things that are deemed not necessary. Your court hearing could have waited another day, in other words.
Yeah, and I don't think they wanted to wait any longer, especially before Trump getting inaugurated. So, that whole sentencing hearing was, it was a show. My father-in-law was there, and he just couldn't believe the lies coming out of the prosecutor's mouth. I couldn't either. But to go to the family aspect that you said, we got home from that sentencing hearing and had to tell the kids, mommy's going to go to a camp. We didn't want to use the words prison or jail, like stuff like that. And it was emotional. Luckily, I've always been the dad, even since they were in preschool. Erin and I would always go to drop off, always pick up, because my dad wasn't never there like that. He was a brilliant cardiac surgeon, but family wasn't his priority. It was career. And I wanted to make sure my kids saw me. So it wasn't like dad was finally stepping in and mom's got to go. I've been there. So that was a nice, I guess, transition. It made it a little bit easier on them, but it was still hard. Our oldest son is the happiest go-lucky kid in the world, silly, and he's had to go to therapy now because of this. I've had to pick him up from school having major anxiety attacks. The facility that Erin ended up getting designated to wouldn't allow me to take them to see her. So we would get phone calls, phone call every day, and then a video call a few times a week. It's an odd life to be thrown into. But Erin, she was on, her and I were just on Roger's show this past Sunday, and it was just audio on his radio program. And that was hard for her. So any of these other programs, she's like, I don't think I can do it. Like, it's just too emotional. She hasn't been back home for a month yet she's got a monitor on her ankle. But when I had to take her the judge was cruel. He said, I'll give you 14 days and then you got to self-surrender to Marshal Services, which in a case like this, normal people they self-surrender to their facility once they get designated. Gives you, usually a month to 6 weeks. He gave her 14 days. I took her to Fresno, the Marshal Services in Fresno, and they were confused why she was there. They're like, we've never had anybody self-surrender here. People that are usually brought to us have been arrested by local police, and they're going into custody by force, not by choice.
Were you given that address specifically to go there?
Yeah.
Okay. And they were not advised that you were coming?
They didn't know anything about us coming. And they were very nice, for the situation that was happening. And they're like, let's look up to see if she's been designated and we'll let you just take her. I'm like, that's fine. Actually, a buddy of mine has a private jet 30 minutes from here, said I could take her anywhere we want to go. My friend's been a godsend forever. Hadn't been designated, so they had to take her into custody. And that image is still burnt into my face, her getting taken in. They didn't know what to do with her, so they had to put her in the Fresno County Jail.
Oh, come on.
If you know anything about the Fresno County Jail, it is, on the men's side, it's got one of the highest murder rates ever in a jail, just because it's all a gang, gang bangers. And then on the women's side, it's all the girlfriends of that. So it was not good. And so that's when I started making my push just to get her out of there into her facility. I made a lot of phone calls. Luckily, a friend of mine is a civil rights attorney, kind of put some pressure on the marshals, and we were able to get her picked up within, I think it was 2 weeks, and taken directly to her camp. Camp life, she said, was obviously way better than the Fresno County jail, but I mean, she still saw stuff that she needs to have a conversation with Director Marshall. I mean, how contraband's getting in. She saw how girls are giving other girls pills so they can still get high off of stuff, or drinking sanitizer. I mean, these are still low-level offenders. They're not, I mean, they're mostly girlfriends of people that got caught up in white collar or people that got caught up in tax issues, but there are low-level drug offenders in there that need the help. They're still not even getting the help they need. They're just being put away. So it was a long struggle for her, but she's a very God faithful woman, and she leaned into that. I don't remember how many books she said she read, but it was in the 80s.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a hard time for her. And now luckily she is home and adjusting back to what our life should have always been.
Absolutely. So I mean, the human interest side of this is massive. It's horrific. It's terrible. But I want to dive into the program itself, the intent basically of the PPP program versus enforcement, because emergency funding versus retroactive prosecution is something that needs to be examined, because the guidelines for a program like this need to be absolutely clear and cookie cutter, repeatable, et cetera. They can't just be all over the place and chaotic. And frankly, the government's case alleges that there was falsified tax and payroll records, that there was use of funds for personal expenditures, and that you guys exceeded legal threshold for fraud. The defense and the supporters of these claims are that there was allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, claims of overcharging or coercion, and basically a lawfare situation. So let's dissect what the PPP guidelines were and what you did, and where they are saying you crossed the line and didn't follow the directions. And possibly it's because the directions were simply not clear. And if they weren't, how could you advise them to make it more clear, so that in the future, if we are challenged with another crisis like this and PPP money is going to be made available, that people don't fall into the same pitfalls?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when everything hit, I mean, before that, we had successful businesses. We invested a lot of money into this TV series, even our home. And even before hearing about the PPP stuff, I was like, well, we have $1 million in equity in our home. I could probably just do a mini little refi, pull some cash out to survive, see how long this is going. And then everything with the PPP hit, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what this really is. And the guidelines were changing every day. But I started reaching out to our local banks, and they're like, we're not even touching this right now because of that reason. Like the guidelines are so sparse. So like it's changing, like I said. And then listening to the news, they said, well, you don't have to, you can apply to any bank, start reaching out. So I still wasn't applying. I wanted to get information to see if we were even eligible. And it was mostly for our series, Ohana, because we had payroll. We had a whole budget set up from a year before. I mean, we were getting ready to go into production for this. And I reached out to one of the loan originators, and they said, no, payroll projections are fine. And I've had traditional SBA loans in the past. I used to own clothing stores. And we've had SBA loans for that. And one of the big things that you need to provide are projections for either 18 to 24 months of if this business is going to succeed, for the SBA to invest in it, So it didn't seem like a red flag at all when they said you can use the payroll projections. So that's exactly
Mhm.
what we did. And they
Mhm.
even said in the email, because I even asked them, well, there's no, I forget even what the tax forms are, the 951 or 41 or whatever. I'm like, there's no tax forms for 2020. And they said, put your projections on the tax forms for 2019.
Okay.
So I'm just listening to somebody that I assumed had a better knowledge than the chaos that was going on in the world at the time.
Right.
So everything was done not with intent to defraud. It was done to basically continue this project that we were doing by the guidelines that we were told we were allowed to do. It's plain and simple as that. And the prosecutor didn't want to hear that. I mean, we don't know if, I mean, you hear a lot of things, and it could be just because career ambitions, they want conviction rates, they want as big a sentence as possible, or did it have something to do with Ohana? Like, did it have something to do with them not wanting our series to go any further?
Right.
Um, Especially because, I mean, they bankrupted us before they even charged us, just to make sure nothing could happen any further. So, I mean, my father-in-law strongly believes it's the latter of the two. They didn't want that TV series to come out.
I would agree. You're telling the truth in sort of the what was that show with Tom Cruise where they had cognitive cognitive. They could thought pre-crime. What was it called? Pre-crime
Oh,
thought.
was that Minority Report?
Minority Report. Thank you. It's the strangest name for that movie. I can never remember it. But anyway, this reminds me of the Minority Report. They're looking into what you're going to be producing, and they're seeing their own transgressions now going up on a silver screen, and people are going to draw conclusions. Particularly if they're watching this from Hawaii, they're going to go, "Wait a minute, this looks like what's going on down the street in City Hall here."
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating look at how the justice system was designed to make sure it protects its own. And we see
Well,
that all the
and
time.
they took everything out of context because unfortunately,
Sure.
when we first got the loan, I even asked, there's emails asking the bank, hey, should I set up a separate bank account before you fund it? And they said, no,
Sure.
that's fine. Just put it in your account and then you can disperse it however you need to. So everything came into our account. And then we set up a separate business account at a whole separate bank with my producing partner where he had the majority control over it. Because I'm like, this money is not ours. I don't even want an extra dollar of it in our account that I accidentally spend and get in trouble. So
Right.
we basically, once the funds were received, we had everything transferred minus what we thought we were told we were allowed to pay ourselves,
Right.
because we were still allowed to pay ourselves something to live.
Right.
So we did that, and the majority of it went into the separate account, and that's now considered money laundering.
Right. Not too dissimilar from the Social Security lockbox, but I digress. So
Yeah. So and they also said since that account was commingled in the beginning, because we had our own money at the time. We were
right.
paying our mortgage on our house in California with it. We had our own money. But since it's commingled, that's where they can kind of skew their ability to say, they did this with the money, they did that, they spent personal funds, but it was in our account
Right.
with our money we already had. So they took a lot of things out of context, and they definitely used they abused civil forfeiture for sure, especially on
Yeah.
our house in California.
So let's talk about the plea deal. This is the question. Why plead guilty? I mean, I look at the J6ers. There were some that pled out. Dr. Simone Gold pled out. She gave her reasons as to why, and I completely comprehend why she would do that, considering her situation and what she was trying to accomplish at the time with America's Frontline Doctors. And then
Yeah.
you had J6ers that didn't plea out. The Jake Langs, the guys in Oath Keepers, and on and on and on. Proud Boys. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people stayed in prison that could have pled out, could have taken the easy way out, but they said, no, on principle, I'm not. I'm being denied due process. And I just don't want to take this plea. So why plead to any aspect of these charges as guilty?
It was the worst. I mean, I had my attorney hang up on me when we were going over the plea agreement because
Really?
I was just pissed about it because one, I didn't want to do it, but we didn't have any money to defend ourselves.
Mm,
And the attorneys over in Hawaii that we were getting um, in the beginning for court appointed, I Googled all of them, and by trade, they were personal injury attorneys. So it's the equivalent of going into triple bypass surgery and you're getting a pediatric, dentist to take on your case. They didn't know anything. They weren't doing anything. Anytime Erin and I would push them on the research we were doing, they would just ask the court to remove them, and then we'd get another one. I mean, this went on for years. So, our attorneys sold us on the plea, and they knew the prosecutor was basically intimidating us to take it, especially because of the threats on my mother. And then the threats of more. And, our attorneys would say, well, if they charge you more, you're looking at a higher sentencing guideline, and you could spend 10 years instead of, a couple. And it's just like, oh my God, how are we even in the situation? And it just pissed us off.
hmm
And then they'd also say, hey, you're from California. This is going to take place in Hawaii. They're going to lean on that, saying, evil California people trying to steal Hawaiian people's money, which is the exact opposite. If the series would have gone into production, it would have brought millions. We were talking to streamers, Hulu, Netflix, and even CVS has a big presence. I mean, we're looking, I think, anywhere from a little over $1 million up to $8 million an episode that this would have generated money in Hawaii. And some of that PPP money was spent to shoot a teaser trailer in October of 2020.
hmm
And I mean, it was all out of work crew members from other Hawaii productions that were shut down. I mean, these guys were thankful. They were getting money again to put food on their table. So I did not want to take the plea. And I was telling somebody the other day, the day that I agreed to the plea is the day that President Trump took the nomination from the Republican Party to run
Right.
again. And
Did SAG stand by you? Any of the
I'm not SAG. I'm not an actor. And
Okay.
I made a movie back in 2000. It came out in the theaters in 2001. Because I went to American Film Institute, and I've had a somewhat small career, but still a career, even though the prosecutor said this was a vanity project, which is, I mean, more of his lies. No, I didn't get any of that kind of support. And I mean, to be honest, Erin and I didn't think it would. We thought the Justice Department and the justice system was about justice. So we literally thought, oh, we're going to go through this process and they'll find out the truth. But when
Right.
you're forced to not allow the truth to come out, it's basically a one-sided mob hit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a one-sided mob hit. I totally agree. There has been some common themes of federal prosecutorial dynamics and malfeasance. You now have, and this is coming directly from your website, and we'll go to there in a second, but you guys have filed a federal complaint against the Hawaiian prosecutor calling on the Trump administration to backlaw criminalizing prosecutorial lies. And I think this is fascinating because you have a clemency petition under review by the White House pardon czar, Alice Marie Johnson. But you and your wife have filed this complaint with the DOJ's Office of Professional Responsibility against Assistant U.S. Attorney Greg Yates, accusing him of repeated prosecutorial misconduct in their federal PPP loan case. And the petition for clemency, it's now under review with the pardon czar, Alice Johnson. Have you spoken with Ed Martin, for instance, the pardon attorney?
Yes. So I was actually in DC a few weeks ago and met some great people. Met I did get to meet Ed and talk to him for a little bit. After did I did a lot of stuff last year, and that's the main reason why Erin said she'd go in first, because she knows I'm very creative. And like you said in the beginning of this broadcast, like we had some local news, but we weren't national news, so no one knew about our story, especially the correct side of the story. So after Roger basically heard about, I got our case to him, and he was just shocked, and he lent us his voice to start the spotlight. Last summer, like I said, I think creative, and I put up a billboard by Alice Marie Johnson's house in Mississippi, even though I knew she was in Washington. And then I ran that press release, and her daughter reached out to me and gave me her White House email and said, Alice knows about your case, send her everything. And that's what I did. I've never heard from Alice, but I do talk to Roger quite a bit. And Roger said Alice, after that, did give him a call to discuss, and it was a very good call. So I know it's on their radar. Ed Martin he knew about the case too. And it's on their radar. And I think he made a comment it's a grave injustice, basically. So I know it's going through the process. Obviously nobody knows what that process is unless you're on the inside. So
right.
That's why I just kind of got to keep pushing, just to make sure people hear the truth and exactly what happened, all the misconduct, all the lies, all the bullying done to us.
What do you want the public to know about you, about Erin, and about your family?
I mean, Erin and we've been married 18 years, and the prosecutor tried to break us up, and we have a strong bond. She was my best friend before we even started dating. Our kids, we've always been there for our kids, no matter what. Like we are that family where we want to spend time with each other, not like apart. We've always been entrepreneurs. I've never worked for anybody. Straight out of high school, I started creating my own jobs. We've lost business. Like I said, we had clothing lines. I don't know if you remember No Fear, the brand, but it went under and it took us down. And we worked our asses off to rebuild. This is over 10 years ago. This is probably 15, 17 years now. And we don't take shortcuts. Like, this was not anything about free money. And like I said, before COVID, we were doing really well. We had a house with a lot of equity that we had put a lot of money into. So it annoys the hell out of me to be labeled with some of these guys that you did see on the news. And I remember seeing it on the news during the summer of 2020, the guys that were working in fast food restaurants, that then you saw them going out and buying Lamborghinis. Those people did need to come and get taken down, because that is abusing what the system was meant for. Our first attorneys that we had that did reply to the subpoena, I remember what she said. She said, you guys just got caught up in this net, and somebody needs to tell them the truth on what you guys actually did. And unfortunately, we couldn't afford her past that point, because we had, like I said, they had taken all our money. So that's when we got thrown a court appointed.
Do you think in general the system is designed to get accountability, or is it really just a constant example and reminder of a system that can go too far, frankly?
We need the justice system, obviously, because there's still a lot of crime, especially the stuff they're cleaning up now. The violent crime and the stuff you see on the news and everything Trump is trying to push. I just think there's bad actors in almost every department of the government. And when I was talking Director Marshall when I was at the Capitol a few weeks ago, and I gave him the example because he's like, I'm trying to fix stuff. I really am. I'm like, no, I get it. Like, it's a machine, and this machine has not been oiled, and it's actually been using super glue instead of oil for the past how many decades. And it needs to be oiled again to get rid of the people that don't want it to run how it's supposed to. And I think that's just kind of what's going on in the DOJ, especially during the Biden era. And I feel like a lot of these prosecutors don't care about the truth or justice. It's about wins, because it's a goal, especially if you're a career AUSA or prosecutor. You want to work your way up the ladder, or you want to someday, I think, become a federal judge. So I think there's a lot, and I don't even know what it would be for bonuses. And like you and I have talked privately about where forfeiture money goes.
Yeah. Where does it go?
It's a $1 billion industry that, from what I've looked up, is not accounted for.
Right.
That's why, I mean, our judge even made the comment in our both hearings, like, you've made great strides to pay back the restitution. Why do we still have a restitution order for over the amount of what the loan was for?
That's troubling, isn't it?
No, it is. And then, I mean, the one major red flag about our case that I usually run out of time with people because I talk too much, but 7 days before our sentencing, because they had our house that was called a Liz Pendant on our house in California. So we couldn't touch any equity. We couldn't sell it. We couldn't do anything with it. And like I said, we had over $1 million in equity at the time. 7 days before our sentencing hearing, the prosecutor said, you know what, we don't have an interest in this property anymore. So it's not even in our forfeiture documentation or whatever from the court. And right after Erin and my sentencing, I called my best friend, the one that I mentioned that has the private plane, and he was just shocked. He was just, I can't believe this. And then I told him what was going to happen with the house, how they now have a foreclosure sale set. He's like, well, I have some money. I'll send my buyer down to the auction, and I'll just buy it back because there's a ton of equity in it.
Sure.
So the day of that auction, he's texting me, and he said, you know what, it sold. It went back to the bank because it sold for a little more than what he had in cash. Like, I think it went for like 1.3 or 1.2. But in that text thread, he's like, my buyer said it was kind of odd because there was federal agents at the foreclosure auction bidding on your property.
Oh boy. Yep.
This is
the wash, rinse, and repeat playbook, by the way. We're seeing it in guardianship and in other cases where they're taking your personal property, your family, your money, and the judges and the law enforcement are in on it, and they're owning these houses en masse, and they're flipping them and making millions of dollars.
Yeah,
it's a racket. It's a RICO scheme.
It baffles my mind, and I think the amount that he said they bid up to was around 1.1, which was what we paid back out of the 1.3. It was so they basically used the money.
You bought your house twice because they used your money.
Yeah, and so we basically lost our house. We lost the $1 million in equity in that house, and now we're renting somewhere.
It's disgusting.
So it is. And like I said, through all this, God has been on our side. Like, we were able to start a whole nother business that's doing fantastic. I mean, we're still years away from, especially living out here in California, from buying a house again. But when somebody's going through a situation like this, you have to learn to compartmentalize, for one. That's right. Two, you have to always kind of look at the good things that are going on in your life.
That's right.
My wife is home again. The kids are ecstatic about that. we do have a good business. We do have a house that is a home that we can enjoy. But there is that cloud hanging over now on, I'm supposed to have a status hearing in July because Erin will be completely done serving her sentence at home.
Right.
And I'll have to self-surrender. It does state in, I think, the paperwork to my facility, not the same song and dance they put Erin through.
Right.
And she even said she's glad she went in first instead of me, because like I said, that jail in Fresno, I would have probably been killed. Like it was not safe.
Oh my God. What a horrific story, Chris, for your entire family. I think you and your wife have done an amazingly heroic job of protecting your children, which, when you think about it, the government is supposed to protect us. They're supposed to protect us from the real criminals. And what I see in your case and so many of these other stories of people I speak to, and what we're now witnessing with the stuff we're diving into in the foundational work that we're doing at American Made Action, is that the government are the criminal actors, and they hide behind the shield of being the government. But they are using every power they have to rob and steal and punish the people who fund them, which is you and me, the taxpayer. So it's really, it's just so disgusting what we see going on. I'm glad people like Roger Stone are really working hard in DC and are as connected as they are. I'm glad to lend my platform for what it's worth to get your story out, because people need to know that when I look at you, you're a healthy young guy, you're a committed husband and father, and you're going to go back to life and you're going to make the best of it. And you're not going to let this machine destroy you. And people are intimidated by the machine because the government isn't on your side. It never was. And that's the whole point of this Constitution, is to make sure we keep it reined in so that it can't extend a federal tyranny over all of us and then fleece you of all the hard work you've done, the sacrifice of blood, sweat, and tears you've done to provide for your family. So I think your story is very important for people to understand and comprehend.
I feel like they go after the low-hanging fruit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They know you can't defend themselves. And it's, like I said, it's just about another check mark on their it's a gold star on their little kindergarten card, basically. Like that's all. And that's what I equate up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking time to join us this afternoon. It's a terrible story, but you actually show that you can overcome. And faith in God clearly is something very important to you and your family, and the love and friendship you have with your wife is to be commended. It's rare to see these days. Most families wouldn't survive something like this, but it seems to me the two of you are going to come out stronger and better than before. And I do have faith in Ed Martin. I do have faith in what he's doing in the pardon department. And I know he's doing everything in his power to make sure that, stories like yours get heard and get the true justice they deserve. Because in the end of this, when this boomerang comes back around and you have been given a pardon of innocence, you have every right to go after the government with the full weight and force of the American people behind you who want to see justice for those who are harmed by the very government that's supposed to protect us. So,
yeah, I know. That's one of Erin's major priorities if we get that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think the door's been opened up with General Flynn a few weeks ago.
Great. He's such a tremendous man. He's really the world's general, as I call him. And I have the full faith and credit of him that I believe, few people are still out there swinging from the vines and the trees to get it right. And if anybody knows the miscarriage of justice, it's certainly that man, and Roger Stone for that matter. So. Yeah.
I mean, Roger's taught me a lot. Like I said, Roger and I didn't know anybody in federal politics for the most part a little over a year ago. And I mean, we text quite a bit, I would say every day or every other, at least once a week kind of thing. And I tell people he's a pit bull, but he's a very compassionate person when he hears you have been screwed over. Yeah. And his quotes like, fight, fight, fight. And just like people have to, if they're going through something like this, and you didn't do anything wrong, don't just bend over. Like you got to fight. You got to get your word out there. So yeah.
And doing these interviews isn't easy, I'm sure. I'm sure your wife might be in the other room. Just, I can't imagine
Yeah,
the pain she's going through.
she can't even be in the same room when I'm doing these. She did Rogers, like I said, and then she's like, I can't do anymore.
Oh, God
I
bless
can't do
her.
anymore. One thing, she can't get a hair appointment because she's on home confinement. So, but
Well, we
but
can
no,
we can probably work around that. We can find a
there's some
hairdresser to
emotional
come to
part
you.
too. It was, yeah, I mean, it was an emotional trying to just tell her story. And then I was on Colonel Rob Manis's show yesterday, and she had to leave like halfway through because it was this kind of, I hate to use the word triggering, but it was, it was kind of reliving it again. She's not there yet. And like I said, I have to kind of compartmentalize being able to do that.
Yeah, I can appreciate it.
Keep this push going. But no, I thank you so much for having me on.
Oh my goodness, it's my pleasure, my honor, and I will keep you guys in prayer. I'm going to, I'm going to stay close to this. July 4th, rumor has it there's going to be some mass pardons on that day, which is only fitting. It's Independence Day.
Yeah.
So I hope your name is in that list if it doesn't happen before then. So
we're praying. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
all we can do. Continue to fight and continue to pray. And every nudge God pushes me to do, I do. So
yeah. Well, folks, you can follow the story of the Mazzei family right here at Pardon Mazzei, Mazzei, if you're listening this to us on a podcast. Pardon Mazzei. And by all means, keep up with their story, because this is just yet another glaring example of what goes on in our government on a daily basis, of the fleecing of Americans and the abuse, the flogging that we take. It's just despicable. It's disgusting, and it's got to stop. So, Chris Mazzei, thank you so much. Please give my best to Erin and to your family, and stay close. I want to keep tabs on this story. It's very important.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. It doesn't get much worse than that. Sadly to say, it really doesn't get much worse than that. When you have a beautiful family who's trying to live the American dream, at the end of the day, this is where we have to land. The government has got a duty to prosecute fraud. Clearly, that's not the question. But the American people also have a right to ask why justice, or not why. I want to say why wasn't it, but was justice done fairly? Was it applied evenly? And was it pursued with integrity? Because if the system gets it right, well, then, yeah, we have some protections. But when it gets it wrong, like in the case of the Mazzei family and so many other stories I've been bringing to you as of late, this means we've got something totally different going on, because the Mazzei's case isn't about the PPP loans, right? It's about how these people in DC use power, they wield power, how pressure's applied. And it's about whether or not there's any accountability on either side of the courtroom, whether it's the people on defense or prosecution. Are we being honest? Can we prove the story? Has all exculpatory evidence been provided? Were the clean rules of engagement ever precisely detailed to both sides, so you knew what you were dealing with? Because when you don't have any of that cleanly organized, this is what you get, a result. And we're seeing these results over and over again because we have a wayward, corrupt, tyrannical regime. We don't have a government. We have a regime of people up there. And President Trump is one man, but we're 350 million Americans, and we can absolutely fight back on that regime. We can just peacefully non-comply with anything that they want. And if we all were to do it in one day, it would get their attention. It would absolutely get their attention. So we're going to continue to follow the story. We're going to always ask the questions, and we're going to continue to breathe that bright light where others won't talk about it. Because in the end of the day, the truth matters. Justice matters. Real justice matters, and nothing less. Thanks so much for being here again. We will see you tomorrow. Got Jeffrey Prather on. We're going to have a really incredible discussion. I've got a gentleman coming on running in California's 47th tomorrow afternoon as well. So we're going to get caught up with Jeffrey Prather. You guys have a great afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Food security or food sovereignty. Every time we buy food, we choose. Glyphosate exposure is exploding, and people are asking, why is food so expensive? This is why we do what we do. Organic fields, thriving orchards, the purest ingredients straight from the earth. From our farms to your family, we do the testing so you don't have to. You save time, you save money, and our regenerative farms continue to grow. It's time to remove what does not belong. Rebuild with cleaner inputs. Support the farmers with the future in mind. This isn't a trend. It's a shift. We still have a voice. We still have a choice to vote with our dollars for a healthier America today. Tap the link.
Are you ready to take your health back? At vandersteelhealth.com, I trust Purium's powerful superfoods to fuel my body with clean, plant-based nutrition. And in a world filled with toxins, Biomedic is designed to help support your body's natural detox process, even from glyphosate exposure. Real nutrition, targeted support, no junk. Go to vandersteelhealth.com and take control of your health today.